Over the weekend, we had a chance to ask former National Security Advisor under former President Trump, retired General Michael Flynn, about his overall assessment of the Russia-Ukraine war. Here's part of what he had to say. General Michael Flynn, thank you so much for joining us in the Capitol Report.
Steve, thank you.
General, I want to get your thoughts on the Ukraine-Russia war. Big picture, what's your take?
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to thank Epoch Times for all that you guys do. I mean, your whole organization, the enterprise that you represent is really extraordinary. Your reporting, your honesty, your authenticity is terrific. So I want to get that on the table for listeners and anybody that needs to know where to find the truth. So, okay, Russia, Ukraine, Europe, what's happening? And at the 60,000 foot level, this was a totally avoidable war. So totally avoidable. This goes back to, I really believe, it goes back a long way, but it really goes back to 1994, what was called the Budapest Accords in Budapest, Hungary, between, at the end of the Cold War. Right at the time, it was Gorbachev was the head of the Soviet Union, and the basically the collapse of the Soviet Union. In France, you had Mitterrand. In the United Kingdom, you had Margaret Thatcher, and in the United States, you had George Bush, the father. Right. So they had a meeting, and at that meeting, the essential. One of the big ticket items that came out of the Budapest Accords was no further encroachment of NATO against this new Russian Federation, and also that meeting was the decision to unify Germany, both West Germany and East Germany. So some big strategic issues in play. One of which was no more encroachment of NATO up to the Russian Federation frontier and borders. And the reason why is because of the threat. We still had the threat of nuclear weapons and a nuclear exchange. And with whoever was going to be future leaders of any of those nations, we didn't want to get into a potential place where we had nuclear missiles literally right across the boundary of two major nation state, or in the case of NATO or Europe, in the case, between Russia and really the European frontier. We didn't want to have nuclear weapons that close to each other. Makes a lot of sense. Now, Steve, we're in a place where it began. Okay? So now is where mistakes will be made, and mistakes are being made, and people's lives are at risk, and many people have already lost their lives. Because once war begins, the inertia of war creates all kinds of second, third, fourth order effects. Because when you start to shoot things in the night, right, and you have all these things that are happening, people make mistakes, right? That's the tragedy of war. The one thing, and we're here in one of our rallies here in Oregon. One of the things I said to the audience this morning is, war is a failure of policy and diplomacy. Okay, war is not something that anybody wants. War is not an opportunity. Okay, as I think Biden stated maybe a week or so ago. It's not an opportunity. War is a failure. It's a failure. Anytime you see states, nation states at war with each other, it's because there's a failure to communicate some way, somehow. And that's what happened.
And I want to get your perspective. You have a unique perspective, both from an intelligence community perspective and being a general. When you heard President Biden's comments about potentially taking out Putin, what effect does that have? What is your understanding of those things?
They know because, and everybody in the world knows, because immediately after he said it, they had to start walking it back. They had to start walking it back, right? Everybody in his circle had to start walking it back because it's so wrong to say that. We're not talking about some fourth world nation here, third world nation. We're talking about a great nation state that has many nuclear weapons, that has a large, relatively large economy, not a great economy, but a large economy, has a large population. It encompasses 8 time zones. It has been in historically, culturally. From a demographic standpoint, all these sort of big issues. It has been part of the world fabric for years, right? for centuries. So you just can't suddenly go, you know, you're bad and regime change. We need regime change. We need to get rid of Putin. You can't say stuff like that. A president of the United, I mean, I can sit here and say something stupid like that as just somebody, you know, from the former military, outside the military. Now I could say something like that, and people go, I didn't know what he's talking about. When the president of the United States makes comments like that, that means a lot.
General Michael Flynn, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Anytime. I appreciate what Epoch Times is doing. God bless you.